Will the audience please rise? Oyez, oyez, oyez. The Honorable, the Supreme Court of Texas. All persons having business before the Honorable, the Supreme Court of Texas are admonished to draw near and give their attention, for the court is now sitting. God save the state of Texas and this honorable court.
Thank you. Be seated. Welcome to this special ceremonial session of the Supreme Court of Texas. The purpose of this session is to invest the 112th judge of the Supreme Court of the state of Texas, Alberto Gonzales, and to say farewell to the 95th judge of our court, Raul A. Gonzales. All of us appreciate your taking the time to be here to share this very happy and special day in the life of our court. I will now call upon the Reverend Harold G. Zink, Associate Pastor of St. Ignatius Martyr Catholic Church in Austin, where the Raul Gonzales family attends, to deliver our invocation.
Heavenly Father, we ask for a blessing upon this legislative body. May your ever-guiding hand be present upon the Texas Supreme Court. We recognize our helplessness without you, and we pray that you bestow wisdom and a sense of justice upon those who sit on the bench. It isn't that they don't already possess these qualities. It is just that they cannot be overly blessed with them. For they realize, as hopefully we all do, that we cannot receive too many blessings, and those in executive or legislative position especially need to be endowed with them. We are grateful to Raul A. Gonzales for the 14 years of service in the Supreme Court. As he steps down from this position after giving of himself unselfishly in this capacity, bless him, his wife, parents, children, and grandchildren in what lies ahead of him, and then the family members for the sacrifices they have made in order for him to fulfill the role that he is now relinquishing. Please bless his successor, Alberto R. Gonzales, as he assumes this new position, and may his tenure be a long and prosperous one. Grant him wisdom, O Lord, for it is only with wisdom that true justice can be administered. Grant him a humility, O Lord, for it is with humility that he can place himself in the other person's shoes and acknowledge, but for the grace that you give, there go I. And to grant him the compassion, for it is only with this quality that he can understand the failings and shortcomings of his fellow human beings and be able to temper justice with mercy. Finally, Lord, bless the Chief Justice and all the other members of the Supreme Court, as well as our governor and all those who serve with him in this present administration. While we acknowledge the sovereignty of our state, we acknowledge that there is a greater sovereignty, you, Lord, and we place ourselves, those in authority as well as those in lesser positions, in your all-powerful hands. Bless us all then, and particularly the two Gonzaleses, the one retiring today and the one taking his place. May you, the good Lord that you are, always hold them in the hollow of your hand. Amen.
Thank you, Father. We have a number of special guests today, and I would like to do my best to introduce them to you, who are currently or have rendering service to the state or have in the past served in the judicial branch. Since the legislature is in session and the executive and the legislative branches play a large role in our success as an institution, we will break somewhat with our own tradition and introduce members of those branches first. You will hear later from our outstanding governor, the Honorable George Bush. He has appointed 4 of the 9 members of this court and has been to all these swearing-in ceremonies, and we once again welcome you to our ceremonies as we change the constitution of the court. Thank you for being here. Other statewide officials who are here include our Attorney General, John Cornyn, the Land Commissioner, Susan Combs, Railroad Commissioner, Tony Garza, Secretary of State, Elton Bomer, and the Chair of the Public Utilities Commission, Pat Wood. Are there any other statewide officials here? Thanks to each of you very much for coming. From the legislative branch, Senator Bill Ratliff is here. Representatives Anna Mowry, Scott Hochberg, Delwyn Jones, Bob Hunter, and Peggy Hamrick. Are there other members of the legislature? Yeah. John, good to see you. John Culberson of Houston. Thanks to each of you for coming and sharing this day with us. From the judiciary, first, 3 of our spouses are here. My wife, Lynn, Kay Enoch, and Claudio Baker. Thank you for your daily sacrifices and for being here to share this occasion with us. Former justices of our court include former Chief Justice Joe Greenhill and our almost most immediately retired Justice Rose Spector. Thanks to each of you for coming. From our joint high court, the Court of Criminal Appeals of Texas, Judges Sharon Keller, Mike Kiesler, Sue Holland, Cheryl Johnson. Are there others? Oh, and Larry Myers. Thank you all for sharing this day with us. From the Court of Appeals of Texas for the 3rd District, Mac Kidd, Lee Yackel, and Woody Jones. Thanks to each of you. Are there other district or appellate judges of the state of Texas? Finally, I want to recognize our former administrative assistant, Mary Ann Deffabaugh, who's here today. And a special thanks for you to making the effort to be with us. Thanks to all of our guests for coming. The entire court is here except for Justice Hankinson, who many months ago agreed to go to Dallas today and swear in all the new judges in Dallas County. So she is unable to be here, but is certainly with us in spirit. Every time there's a new judge on our court, a judge has to leave. Justice Raul Gonzales, our senior judge, is stepping down after more than 20 years of service to the judicial branch of government. It is my special honor to recognize the new senior justice of our court, Nathan Hecht, to pay a tribute on behalf of the members of the court to the retiring Justice Gonzales.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court, Governor Bush, family and friends of Justice Raul Gonzales and of Justice Alberto Gonzales, and distinguished guests. Raul Gonzales came to the Supreme Court 14 years ago, and by the time I arrived 4 years later, he was already a legend, his place in Texas history secure. First elected a district judge in Cameron County in 1978 as a Democrat, he was appointed 3 years later by Republican Governor William P. Clements to the Court of Appeals for the 13th District of Texas at Corpus Christi. After 3 years on that court, he was appointed again in 1984, this time by Democratic Governor Mark White, to the Supreme Court of Texas. Perhaps the most important thing that Governor Clements and Governor White ever agreed on was Raul's solid qualifications for high judicial office. But appealing to two very different chief executives, hard as that was not Raul's greatest accomplishment. In 1986, after a five-man primary race, a runoff, and a contested general election against a candidate who 2 years before had come close to defeating John Hill for Chief Justice, Raul Gonzales became the first Hispanic elected to statewide office in Texas ever. For that achievement alone, fought hard for and won fairly, pioneering the way for others to follow, Raul Gonzales will be long remembered. Judicial service has not been merely an honor for Justice Gonzales. It has been hard work, about which he had plenty of first-hand experience as a migrant worker in the fields of South Texas, growing up in Weslaco and later picking apricots and packing tomatoes to pay for college tuition at the University of Texas. He brought to the bench the industrious spirit cultivated in his youth. The Southwestern Reports contain 456 opinions authored by Justice Gonzales, many of which are known to virtually every Texas lawyer, like the third Edgewood case, which helped bring about sweeping changes in the way Texas finances its public schools, DuPont versus Robinson, which required trial courts to determine the reliability of expert testimony before admitting it in evidence, Elbauer against Smith, which prohibits most so-called Mary Carter agreements, where a party settles but stays in the litigation and retains a financial interest in the outcome. And perhaps Justice Gonzales' most often cited opinion, Kavanaugh versus quality control parking, which allowed for prejudgment interest on many claims. But Justice Gonzales is at least as well known for his dissents. He was not always quite so, disagreeable. On the Court of Appeals, he wrote 12 majority opinions before his first dissent, and only about 1/6 of his opinions on that court were dissents. By the time he left, however, he had gotten the hang of dissenting, and on this court, his first 5 opinions were dissents. About 1/3 of his opinions on the court have been dissenting. The aggravating thing is, many times his views were vindicated. He argued that the trial of punitive damages should be bifurcated from other issues. 6 years later, the court agreed. He criticized the court for refusing to admit that when two trains run together, any fool would anticipate ensuing litigation. 4 years later, it took 4 years, the court took a reality check and conceded Justice Gonzales' point. He argued that corporate CEOs should not be deposed if the information could be obtained by less intrusive means. A year later, the court adopted this view. Here's one that will interest you, Governor. Dissenting from the court's refusal to hear a case, Justice Gonzales wrote that in a softball game, a runner headed for home should not be sued for colliding with the catcher who was blocking the plate. Justice Gonzales' view did not capture the court's attention at the time, but it sure captured the attention of sportscasters across the state. And now it is back to roost. Just yesterday, we listened to argument for almost an hour about whether the liability standard Justice Gonzales proposed was right in the case of the base runner who didn't slide. Part of the explanation for Justice Gonzales' prolific writing is that he seldom is reluctant to speak his mind. Sometimes he should have been a little more reluctant. Like the time he and his wife Dora were talking about what each would do if the other died. Dora volunteered that Raul was so special to her, she could not imagine that her grief at his loss would ever subside enough for her to live with anyone else. When she asked what he would do if she predeceased him, he innocently replied that he thought he would waste little time finding Numero dos. Wrong answer. On rehearing, Justice Gonzales has reconsidered his position, but with Raul, you need not wonder long what he's thinking. He will tell you and tell you straight. Like St. Bartholomew, Raul is completely without guile. He is as quick to make amends as he is to speak out. Justice Gonzales's writing is also a product of his courage. He came to the court in a troubled period. Many times he could have ducked an issue, equivocated, but he didn't. I recall one night our discussing a very high-profile case in which his vote was crucial. He could have decided the matter either way, but the choice he made was one that would and did subject him to harsh criticism. The prospect of adverse personal consequences was unimportant. His sole concern was getting the law right and protecting the court's integrity. I'll never forget that night. Raul's courage has been at personal sacrifice. In 1994, he stood for re-election in what is undoubtedly the most brutal statewide judicial primary and runoff in Texas history. In tribute to his character, consistent through the years, thousands of people worked hard for his victory. This man of the valley represents, in Governor Bush's words, the best of Texas. Two things sustain Justice Gonzales. One is his faith in God. 25 years ago, he and Dora attended a marriage encounter weekend intended to help couples rekindle the flame of intimate relationship. He came away more in love with Dora than ever, but for the first time, in love with God. And since then, his devotion to spiritual things has increased steadily. At one stop during his first statewide campaign, after telling the assembled crowd that he was a born-again Christian, one lady came up afterward and inquired whether he was a Baptist, because she said Catholics don't talk like that. But Raul does. He's not a Baptist. He and Dora are very deeply devoted to the Catholic Church. But he has a distinct ecumenical streak. He's been on a mission trip to Panama under the auspices of the Baptist Convention. He's been on the Methodist National Advisory Board for Hispanic Missions, and he's been on a mission trip to Korea with non-denominational Bill Gothard. Raul's faith infuses his work. He considers the court his ministry so much that I have nicknamed him the Padre. He is very sensitive to the people part of our work, and he is careful to notice the joys and stresses of those around him. He relates to people and is never so busy that he passes them by. He has always made himself available to counsel any member of the court staff, and for most who have needed help, Justice Gonzales's office was their first stop. He has not only been the court's senior justice, he's been our friend. The other sustaining force for Raul is family. He comes from sturdy stock. His father, Raul, and his mother, Paula, emphasized the importance of their children's education. Raul and his two sisters, Ana Delea and Maggie, and his two brothers, Renee and Hernan, are all first-generation college graduates, and Renee is also a judge in Anchorage, Alaska. Raul and his wife, Dora, were in the 4th grade together. She didn't like him much then, but after one dance in college, that was it. And despite his occasional ill-advised candor, to which I've alluded earlier, they are still very close. They have 4 grown children, Celeste, Jaime, Marco, and Sonia, and 1 granddaughter. Most of Raul's family is present today in his honor, as well as Dora's brother Robert and his wife Maria Elena. Would the members of Justice Gonzales's family please stand and accept our thanks for coming today? Justice Gonzales leaves more than 20 years judicial service in the same way he came, on his own terms. The philosopher Hegel said that nothing great in the world has been accomplished without passion. Raul is a passionate man, and he has accomplished great things, with no doubt much more to come. Well, this is an emotional day for us, but as Justice Gonzales wrote in Holloway versus the Fifth Court of Appeals, ya basta, enough is enough. I count among the best aspects of having served on this court my friendship with Raul Gonzales. He has been an inspiration to me, and I've benefited from his example and counsel more than I can say. Justice Gonzales, on behalf of the people of Texas, I thank you for more than 20 years of public service in the cause of justice. On behalf of the Supreme Court, I thank you for your influence on this institution and on the law of Texas. And on behalf of your colleagues, I tell you, we love you and we will miss you. Vaya con Dios, mi amigo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please. Thank you very much, Nathan, for most of those remarks. I am deeply touched, Nathan, at your words, and as I thought about this day, it's been a roller coaster day of emotions, even not only today, but this week, knowing that this moment would come. So I thank you, Nathan, for those fine words. I thank Father Zank, our associate pastor, for coming to give the invocation. I am so proud that my mom and dad are here and that they were introduced. My mother and dad were here 14 years ago when I took the oath of office, and God has blessed me with the opportunity for them to come and hear and witness the ceremony. And I'm delighted that Mom is here and the Dora are here, because they believe every word that Nathan said. And my father probably doesn't. The person who, in my life, who has been my companion for a long time, my dear wife, I would like her to get special recognition. Would you stand, honey? My wife, Dora. You know, elections are not easy. Those of us who are in the have to run for office develop a thick skin, but the wives don't, and they hurt. And my wife has hurt in many elections. So thank you, honey, for putting up with all those things that were said about me, which you knew were not true. And thank you for being by my side all those years. I've had the benefit of having one secretary for the whole time I've been on the court, and that's Melissa Puntney. Melissa is part of our family, and I want to miss you, Melissa, and I'd like to, at this time, recognize you, and would you and your son Stephen please stand? You're dear people. Bill Hill has been my staff attorney. Bill and Sharon are also family. I've had Bill for a number of years. He's my right-hand person. I could not have done the work that I did without Bill Hill and Sharon and my two briefing attorneys, Doug Pritchard and Eric Shernyard. And I have a number of briefing attorneys here that have come. So anybody who has ever worked in my chambers as an intern or a briefing attorney, please stand. I'd like to recognize you. Thank you. Thank you very much for the services you were to the court and your loyalty to me. I want to thank Governor White for giving me the opportunity of serving on the court and appointing me to this position. I want to thank the people of Texas for allowing me the privilege of serving in this capacity. I want to thank the countless of volunteers who gave their time, energy, and money in all those campaigns so that I could be here before you today and continue to serve in this capacity. One of the best things about elections is the people you meet along the way. I don't like the process. I've spoken about the process before, but one of the neat things is you get to travel the state and meet some of the finest people you'll ever want to meet. And they'll work and work and work if they believe in you, and I'm very grateful to be here on their behalf, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank the governor for appointing my cousin to be my successor. Al is a dear friend. He's not my cousin. But he and Becky are dear friends. And Al, I congratulate you. I wish you and Becky well. And may you, dear friends, have as much joy and fulfillment from your service in the court that I've received in the last 14 years. And I salute you. And Governor, thank you so much for appointing Al to be my successor. He'll do a fantastic job, I have no doubt. I want to thank my colleagues, not only the current court, who are dear friends, but I've seen judges come and go. I've had the privilege of serving with some of the most outstanding men and women who have ever served Texas. And that's been a privilege to serve with the likes of Chief Justice Jack Pope, Sears McGee, Robert Maurice Campbell, Franklin Spears, C.L. Ray, Jim Wallace, Ted Z. Robertson, Bill Kilgarland, Chief Justice John Hill, Oscar Mawsey, Barbara Culver, Eugene Cook, Jack Hightower, Lloyd Doggett, Bob Gamage, Justice John Cornyn, who is our new Attorney General, and Rose Spector. The times in our conferences with these colleagues have been fun most of the time. We've had our moments, like any family does, and as Justice Heck alluded to, I was not shy with my opinions about anything. And hopefully, I'll leave the court a better place than I found it. I've tried to do my best, and if I've made any contributions to the state of Texas, I give God the honor and the glory. Thank you for this honor, and God bless you.
Thank you, Judge Gonzales. We will all miss you very much. The court does everything in strict order of seniority, including sitting down, and we now have to realign ourselves in order to make room for the newest justice of our court. Since Justice Gonzales, who is leaving, was our senior judge, every judge will move chairs, except for me, in order for this to happen. So Justice Heck moves from my right to my left. Justice Enoch moves from the one side of the bench to the other. Justice Owen, we'll just call the names out. Justice Baker takes his new seat. Justice Abbott. And Justice O'Neill moves up after 14 days. Actually, you stay and move one day, isn't that right? Justice Hankinson was to move, and then you just move one up. Justice Hankinson's seat, no, I missed this. Her seat's there. Sorry. It wasn't in the script. Having rearranged ourselves more or less, we are now ready to receive the newest judge on our court. And I have the honor of introducing His Excellency, the Governor of Texas, the Honorable George W. Bush, to introduce his friend, our newest justice.
Thank you very much. Justices of the court, thank you very much for welcoming me here. It's my honor to introduce Al Gonzales, but before I do so, I want to say a word about the other Gonzales. What a decent, loving, kind-hearted man Raul Gonzales is. I had lunch with him about a month ago, and the best way to describe the departing justice is to tell you I felt like a better person, a much better person, after sharing bread with you for 1 hour, sir. We'll miss you. It's now my profound honor to introduce Al Gonzales, who is a great friend and a person who's been a wise and trusted advisor whose counsel I have sought many, many times in the past. He's a good guy. He's a decent fella who loves his family. He's a man of integrity and fairness whose knowledge of the law will be only surpassed by his respect of it. Those qualities are why I asked him to serve as my general counsel and why I asked him to serve as the 100th Secretary of State of our state, and why I have now asked him to serve on the Supreme Court of Texas. With Al Gonzales on the bench, Texas will have a jurist who is committed to evaluating complex legal matters in a thoughtful and judicious way. Texans will have a jurist who will interpret our state's laws even-handedly, with the interests of every Texan in mind. Let me tell you something about Al Gonzales. The man who sits here today wants to be in judicial robes was once a 12-year-old boy with few prospects, selling soft drinks during football games at Rice Stadium. Each Saturday, after he'd sold his allotment of drinks, he'd climb up to the nosebleeds section of that big stadium. He'd stay there long after the crowds had gone, munching on his popcorn and watching the students wander back to their rooms on the campus. And he would daydream about how great it must be to be them, college students with a whole universe of possibilities before them. When Al reached high school, quite the little second baseman, I might add, he didn't sign up for college, though. He signed up for the Air Force. Soon after, he was presented with an interesting choice. It's a choice that changed his destiny and speak volumes about his character and the values he learned from his parents, Pablo and Maria Gonzales. The choice was this. He could either take an assignment in the tropical paradise of Key West, Florida, or the frozen tundra of Fort Yukon, Alaska. You see, at one time, he knew he'd have to do a tour of duty in some unpleasant outpost. He could have postponed that decision. Now, most kids Al's age would have headed straight for Key West, looking for Jimmy Buffett. Not Al. He chose Fort Yukon because he felt it was duty to take the hard task first. The good times could wait. That decision would prove faithful because, you see, at Fort Yukon, he befriended 2 Air Force Academy graduates who recognized his robust intelligence. They encouraged him to take the ACTs and shoot for a slot at the Air Force Academy. And the rest, they say, is history, because, you see, Al spent 2 years at the Air Force Academy before transferring to the school that had first captured his imagination as a boy, Rice University. From there, he went to graduate school at Harvard Law. He made a partner at Vincent Elkins and became one of our state's most respected young lawyers. At that point, he could have rested at some kind of comfortable pinnacle of his profession, but all of a sudden a new governor showed up, one who got famous for shooting the wrong bird. He could either keep his sure thing partner at the big V&E or uproot his family, leave a town that he loved, and come to work for a guy who was picking on lawyers. Fortunately, Al chose Austin, Texas. I want to thank Al for his friendship, but Texas wants to thank him for the courage of the choices he made, choices that led him to this day in this place on this happy occasion. I am absolutely confident that the man soon to be sworn in as Justice of the Supreme Court will be one of the very best that Texas has ever had. Al Gonzales.
Becky wants to be on the phone. That makes sense. This Bible is given in court and the same use. Somebody tore his name out of it, but please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Alberto R. Gonzales, do
I, Alberto R. Gonzales, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of Justice
of the Office of Justice
of the Supreme Court of Texas,
of the Supreme Court of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
His faith. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. We'll put on your robe and you can
Chief Justice Phillips just told me I was promoted to the big mic. Plan on writing a speech for this very important occasion for me, but quite frankly, I've been a little busy this week learning how to be a justice. And I also felt that this would be one occasion where it would be more appropriate to talk from the heart. And it's easy to do that today because I look out in this audience and see so many friends and family and supporters who have helped me so much along the way. And so that's what I intend to do this afternoon, just very briefly. Last night, I had dinner with the two best friends I had in law school who flew in from the Midwest to attend today's ceremony. And as I drove home, I thought a lot about the dreams and aspirations that I had while in law school. Many of the same ones that those of you who are in the audience that are lawyers probably had. Dream to make a lot of money, but no, really the dreams to make a difference and to help people. But never in my wildest dreams did I thought that I would ever be here today in this historic and beautiful chamber and take the oath of office as Supreme Court Justice. Success always requires the assistance of lots of people, and I'm no different. And so probably the main emotion I feel today is one of gratitude. Gratitude to many of the state officials who are here that I worked with during the past 4 years in our fight to make Texas better. Gratitude to the staff at the Secretary of State's office, the staff in my General Counsel's office, and my new staff at the Supreme Court, working to try to make me better and trying to make my service to Texas the best that it can be. Gratitude to Justice Gonzales. Justice Gonzales has been a role model and mentor for many, many people for many years, and not just as a lawyer or as a judge, but as a person. And I can't tell you how privileged and proud I am, Raul, to follow you on the bench. And Becky and I extend to you and Dora our love and affection and our good wishes. Thank you so much for your service to Texas. Of course, I have also a great deal of gratitude to our governor, who has given me 3 once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. I just want to say thank you, Governor, for all the many chances. I really thought I could make it through. And finally, of course, gratitude to my family who have been with me through so much. And I would like the members of my family to stand up, please. And please join me in giving them applause of appreciation. Thank you so much for being here. And when I talk about giving thanks, it begins with, of course, the first woman in my life, my mother Maria, and ends with the last woman in my life, my lovely wife Becky. This appointment also means, of course, a great deal of pride and humility for me. Pride in being able to serve in this position that for a lawyer and a Texan provides the best opportunity to serve our state and serve our profession. Humility, because I now have to work with 8 extremely talented, dedicated individuals. And also I now have the realization that those dreams that I used to have in law school, the aspirations of changing history, of changing people's lives, I have the power to do that now. And I'm going to deal with that power and give that power the respect that it deserves, guided by the principle that within our system of government, the judiciary has a very definite role. For 4 years, I've worked in the executive branch, and I've seen the interplay, the struggle for power between the executive and the legislative and the judicial branch. And so I fully understand the proper role of the judiciary, and that will be my guiding principle as I make decisions in the years to come. Let me close by just simply saying that the other day someone asked me, what would I like to be remembered as, or the title that I prefer the best, or what accomplishments I would like to be known for in the future. And it reminded me of the remarks given by our newest justice, Justice Harriet O'Neill, in her remarks some 10 days ago. Harriet concluded her remarks by reciting a poem in which he talked about children and the importance of being careful about what you say and what you do, because our children watch us. They learn from what we do. And it seems to me that the most important thing that we can do is to be parents and teachers to our children. When I got home last night, my sons were in bed, and I kissed them goodnight, and I realized that for me, that is the best that I can be, is to be a good father. I know that 10 or 20 years from now, all of this will be a nice memory. But if my sons won't talk to me, and if they don't hug me, and if they don't love me, then I'll be a very sad man. So as you travel around the state and people ask you, is Al Gonzales going to be a good judge? I hope you say that, yes, I think he's going to be a good judge. But more importantly, I hope you say that he's trying to be a good father, and that the most important thing in his life are his children, because that's the title that I really covet the most. On behalf of my wife, Rebecca, I just want to say thank you for being here today, you friends and supporters and members of my family, for sharing in this wonderful day. Thank you.
This has been a very special day for this institution. To Justice Hecht and to Governor Bush, thank you for those moving tributes. Justice Raul Gonzales, you have served the people of Texas faithfully and bravely and well for more than 20 years, and we know that you will continue to serve your state and your country and your God in whatever calling you go to next. To Justice Al Gonzales, you've had a brilliant career as a student, as a lawyer, and as a public servant, but we have every confidence that the best is yet to come, and then when it's all done, you will be remembered, as was your predecessor, as a great father and a great person. Thanks to each of you for coming and sharing this day with us. The State Bar of Texas will host a reception in its building at 1414 Colorado immediately at the conclusion of the ceremony. And I now will call upon the new Justice Gonzales' family's pastor, Reverend Daniel Garcia of the St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church here in Austin, to deliver the benediction.
Let us please bow our heads in prayer. God of eternal wisdom and providence, we, your servants, give you thanks for the blessings and talents you have granted each one of us in this room. We ask you to guide these Supreme Court justices of the state of Texas in their deliberations and works that lie before them. Give them the insight that calls them to guide and protect all citizens of this state, regardless of who they may be. Make them aware always of your presence. Help them to see that they are your instruments on this earth. We thank you for the way that you have blessed us through Supreme Court Justice Raul Gonzales, and you continue to watch over him and his family. We now place Supreme Court Justice Alberto Gonzales in your care. Give him the fervor and insight he needs to carry out his work with the other Supreme Court justices. Thank you for the way in which you have allowed his life to be a testimony of your grace and love. And may we always realize that every morning and evening you are near. May our relationship with you, God, increase every moment of our day. We pray this in God's name. Amen.
Will the audience please rise? Oyez, oyez, oyez. The Honorable, the Supreme Court of Texas now stands adjourned. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for being here today.